Festwochen Podcast mit Clarissa Stadler und Nada El-Azar. Die Wiener Festwochen danken ihren Hauptsponsoren Erste Bank und Wiener Städtische.
Hello and welcome back to the Wiener Festwochen podcast. My name is Nada El-Azar. Today's guest is not only a director and actress, but also a researcher. With the production Altamira 2042, she will bring a techno-shamanistic performance to the stage. Welcome, Gabriela Carneiro da Cunha.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Nada, for the beautiful introduction. I'm very glad to be here. I'm very glad to be at the festival, to be in Vienna. It's my first time here in Austria. And yes, I would just like to start, if I may, just thanking some people, especially Christoph, the festival director, and then Iris, who is working with me for so long for what we are planning and doing here, and Isabel and Laura. All the festival team has been so kind and careful with this work and with my staying in Vienna and the lab and the performance. So the minimal and each details are being thoughts. And then just the whole team of Altamira 2042. This performance, yet I don't consider that I'm alone in the stage, but we can talk about this in the podcast. Mm-hmm. But even though I'm the only human body in the performance, it's a performance that it's done by lots and lots and lots of people, humans and non-humans. So I would just like to bring these people to this moment here. And there's first Raimunda Gomes da Silva, which is a riverine woman from the Xingu, a person who is like the fundament of this work. Then João Ferreira da Silva, which is her husband, and Bruno, Jimmy, Margarida, Gabriela, Ariane, Natália, Cibele, João, Eric. This is just some of the people who made this work with me, and every time I have the opportunity, I like to bring their names and to thank them, because I find that each gesture that we make in the world, and especially at this moment of the world and of Brazil, it takes lots of people, lots of work, and we don't do anything alone. So just to thank them.
Beautiful. We're also very glad to have you here. And I think today we also have a lot to talk about. So Altamira 2042 is a performance specifically about the effects of the Belo Monte Dam on the Rio Xingu in Brazil, and the consequences for the indigenous people living by the river and who are virtually depending on this very fragile ecological system, which was destroyed by this power plant. And in the performance, you're giving the river a voice. And as you already said, human, non-human, and spiritual entities are basically reclaiming nature in a futuristic but also shamanistic ritual. How did you find combining these two poles of technology and shamanism?
Well, first, I would just like to think together with you and with people that are listening. I don't see that I am giving a voice to the river or to Raimunda or to João or to the spiritual entities or to whoever. I see my work more like giving ears to those who do not have them anymore, to give and to amplify the capacity of listening, because the Xingu and Raimunda and João and so many people in Altamira and even the spiritual entities and the animals and the forest, they do have a voice of their own, and they are not only speaking, but they are like shouting and screaming to be heard. But is some parts of humans and humanities that seems that doesn't have an ear able to listen to this kind of voices anymore. So I think that my work is directed to these people and to amplify this capacity of listening, because I find that's really what is needed at this moment.
Is that why you're working with speakers instead of microphones on the stage?
Maybe, yes, you can see that way. What I wanted, really, it was actually really simple. It was that people who I would perform to could listen what I was listening, could listen what I was having the privilege to listen, could also be testimonies of, as I was being, of this amazing, beautiful, strong, intelligent existence. So that was the wish, and I think you're right. I've never thought about it that way, but I think it is. That's why I don't have a microphone, because it's not about what I will say. It's more about what I listen and how me as an artist, because I am there, I'm not. So it's a relation between me as an artist and Raimunda, João, and the Xingu and Altamira. And how can this relation become a language? How can this relation become an artistic gesture? How can I, as an artist, articulate what I have testified, what I have experienced, what I have listened, and bring this in an artistic gesture? And then just to you mentioned something about technology and shamanism, and find it curious, and I can understand why sometimes people think that those things are different or opposites, and I don't think that way. I think together with the forest people and the indigenous people, and because for me and for them, shamanism is a technology. It is a very sophisticated technology, actually, that it's a technology that allows you to habitate and to visit different perspectives, and therefore different words. And something that I like to say and to reinforce is that if Western people have the technology to build a hydroelectric and create energy with that, these people, they have the technology to listen to the river, and to know and to understand that the river does not want to be dammed, does not want to be buried, and cannot be buried. And this technology involves the ability and the relation, the ability to relate to different beings, the rivers, the spirits, the animals who lives in the river, and that have the right to live, but not because they are food, not because they don't defend the existence of the river because the river is a resource and is important for them somehow as being food or economic reasons. It's not that. They defend the river because the river has the right to exist in her existence. I like to refer to a river as a female. So she has her own existence. And there is a sentence in the performance that João says, that he says, the fish doesn't have peace anymore. So he's defending the peace of the fish. It's not, I need the fish because I am a fisherman. It's not that. It's that the fish has an existence also, and we have to deal with it. I cannot just pass and exterminate it because me as a human, I need that.
I see that you're very, very close to the beliefs and to spirituality, and also, I guess, in Brazilian culture, like in indigenous culture and shamanism are very important. How did you first get in touch with these practices? Or is it something you grew up with?
Yes, I think that being in Brazil, it's not something given and it's not for everyone, but there is a great possibility that you have spirituality and rituals, different religions, different practices, different entities in your daily life. And you can like develop that. I don't even like this word, develop, but you can practice that more or less, but it's there.
It just surrounds you.
It just surrounds you. So I think that was always something in my life, part of my life. For me, it's not really like possible to get in the sea or to go into a river, and doesn't relate to some entities that would be like the guardians or the owners of this being. It's just not water and salt for me, the sea, or just water, the river. I don't dive in a river without asking for permission.
I see, yeah.
So I think this has always been part of my life, but then when I went for the first time to the Amazon region, then that became more and more strong. And because because this research is really about listening to the testimony of a river. So I don't have the language to listen to it. And I'm not a shaman, and I'm not indigenous, so I don't have this language in my culture. So as an artist, I had to invent a language to be able to communicate with this being. And this was invented because I was there, because I was in her body, because I was stepping in that land, because I was talking with Raimunda, João, and all the people that I worked with. And talking with them, there is always a spiritual perspective. For instance, there is a sentence that I really like in the performance it's the only sentence that I played twice, that Raimunda says that the spirits of the water, they exist to everyone, but not everyone was born to exist for them. So she changes the perspective. She looks at the world through the spirit of the water perspective. And what I listen is that, when your people say that, oh, spirit doesn't exist, oh, I don't believe in the spirits, what she says is that the spirit that doesn't believe in you don't exist for them. So I like this approach, because I feel this is I feel this is missing in our relation, not to nature, but in our understanding that we are nature. We don't have to relate to nature, because this would mean that we are something and nature is something else.
Yeah.
But I mean, I went here to the exhibition of the Danube. It's very beautiful, but it's very, it's there. The perspective that the river is brought, it's there for us.
So it's missing this kind of
it's missing
spiritual.
This. You have this economic perspective, this political perspective, war perspective, how the river was important in an economic, political, and this sense for humans, and how she is important in that sense. But I was there and I was asking myself, what this exhibition would be like if the Danube was the curator. What would she bring? Maybe what would the Danube, like making like a joke? It's not a joke, but with the word. But what would the Danube maybe cure us? Of this insistence of looking at her as a resource and not changing and visiting her perspective. She has something to say about what has been the human experience in her riverbanks and in her body.
I see what you think. Yeah, it totally makes sense what you're saying, because the Danube is maybe being looked at as a resource, but not as a source for this exhibition.
Yes.
Yeah. But let's get back to the performance. So Altamira 2042 is a part of an artistic research project which you started working on in 2013 already.
Yeah.
And the project is called About Rivers, Buyunas and Fireflies. And it's revolving about this ongoing destruction of the environment in your home country, Brazil. Can you explain how you got into this topic and what the aim of this project is? Because it's been going on for so long already. Or what did you find out researching? I see also that you brought this huge book with notes from your research. Tell me about it.
So Riverbanks started in 2013, and at the beginning it wasn't really a research project. It was just an actress, an artist that wanted to tell the story of the woman who had fight and died in guerrilla in the dictatorship in Brazil called the Guerrilla do Araguaia. This guerrilla was like one of the most violent conflicts in the dictatorship. At that time, we hadn't have yet the Truth Commission of the dictatorship. So what we knew at that moment was that maybe half of our list of missing people from dictatorship were missing and were killed in this guerrilla. And it was about 80 to 90 people, it's not certain, but 17 of them were women, 12 of them had been killed, and 11 are still missing until today. So I wanted to tell this story of these women. And so I started working. And this guerrilla happened in the south of Pará, which is the state that I work the most, which is in Amazonia. And I mean, it was an intuition, I think. That's the best I can do to explain. But to go there, we decided to go, and not just to do the research and the rehearsal in Rio de Janeiro and São Paulo, and just not know about the guerrilla through books. So I wanted to go there, and I did. First, I went only with the producer of the play, and then with all the team. And so we stayed there for months, meeting the people, meeting the river, and going to the Amazonian region, because that's like a huge part of Brazil. And I think, and maybe the majority of the people haven't even been there, as I haven't.
I'm wondering because over the last few years, I met some people that were like going to Brazil or Colombia or something like this, going into the jungle, making shamanistic rituals with the people. I mean, it's also pretty touristic and maybe exploitative in itself. But I wondered if like people from Brazil, like going into the Amazon, is it something you do, or is it just like this vast part of the country which is just like there and not many people are actually going there and looking at it? So
yeah, I think there is a big gap between Amazonia and the rest of Brazil. Maybe that is changing somehow, as it is so urgent at this moment to look at it and actually fight for it, and support the people who are there and fighting so hard with their own lives for the forest. But I think there is a big gap, and I think this is a political strategy, because it is really expensive to go to the Amazonia. There's not many flights, or what there is very expensive. It's cheaper to come to Europe than to go to Amazonia.
Really?
If you are a Brazilian. So I think it's really part of a strategy to keep these parts of the country isolated. So, and of course, in Brazil, we also have a lot of this colonial heritage that sees the forest as a resource and understand that progress and development has to arrive there, and then the forest won't be the forest anymore. It will be, I don't know, some like a city, or it's hard for me sometimes to speak in English, but you understand what I mean. Like the people from the south of the country who are mainly like urbanized, maybe they look at the forests and as a resource for their own life, for their way of life, So yes, I think there is this big gap, and when we went there, I think that's what was so impacts also, because we were urbanized women, artists from the south of Brazil, and just like the guerrilla women that went there 50 years earlier. And this location, can I go? This location, it really changed the whole research, because it was like a territory dislocation, but it was also a conceptual change, Yes, so at this moment, when I was doing the guerrilla woman, at the middle of the process, I understood that this wouldn't be a play that ended in itself. It would be a continued research. But at that moment, it was really like, it was about listening to the testimony of people who lived in the margins and the riverbanks of the rivers, and the margins of social, economical, cultural, political processes. While I was doing the research, and as I kept on going, like each year I'm there, and the work and all these relations, all the people, they are now part of my life, and I'm part of their lives. And the things which I like to think as a colonial vocabulary and a colonial logic was actually shifting in my brain and in my body. And I understood that it was not about listening to the people, but it was about listening the testimony of the river herself. And I think that was the moment that everything changed.
So, like we already talked about, behind Altamira 2042 lies the true and controversial history of the construction of this Belo Monte Dam, and the performance celebrated its world premiere in Sao Paulo in 2019, which is the same year all of the plant's turbines went online. And you took the performance to the very region of Altamira, where this Xingu River is, and where major conflicts were also happening after the dam was finished. How did the audience there react to the performance?
So Nada, that was, I think, the most hard and exciting performance that I did of Altamira, to go there. And it was really important moment. We were doing an encounter called Amazonia Center of the World, that the objective of this encounter was to bring together European youth that are fighting against climate change and indigenous youth together, so that they can meet and work together. And I had this amazing invitation to perform Altamira there at the end of the encounter. And I was very nervous how it would be, because maybe I'll give a spoiler here, but at the end of the performance, we have an image of the dam being broken. And because that's something that I think this performance happens in the intention of the Xingu, to send her the force to break the walls. And I think that at each time that we do this performance, this might happen. And so I was there in Altamira, and I was, well, how would they take this? And actually, the moment I arrived there was a possibility that the dam could break, because the construction was not well done.
Yeah. I mean, there have been cases of this in the past.
Yes.
Also, like, I think close to Los Angeles, like, yeah.
Yes, lots. And in Brazil, they have a lot, but mostly in mining dams. So I was, how would people take this? And especially because it was really special to do that there, because all the people that, if you come to see, and I hope you do, you will be listening to them. So all of these people who are part of this performance, who their voices are part of this performance, they were there, experiencing it and seeing it for the first time. And at the end, and many of them, that's important to say also, many of them was the first time that they saw theater. They had never been to a theater before. And we didn't do it in a theater space, we did it in the university. And it was really strong and really beautiful, because at the end, when the image of the dam is being broken appears, they all screamed so much and so loud. And I give people like instruments, and they played very loud and with all their passion and also their anger. So they really took the perspective of the Xingu. They embraced this possibility.
So they released their energy, their anger, everything.
Yes. And the performance could never end, because there is like a big rock in the center where people can break this rock. And suddenly when I saw, it was like this big line, because everyone wanted to come and break the rock. And the performance would never end, you know? I was like finishing everything, and people would just stay in the line, and they all wanted to break that rock. And at the very end, there was this child, about 9 years old, and she wouldn't stop breaking the rock. And the performance ended, we were packing, and she was still breaking the rock. And then we stopped and we said, why are you doing that? There is nothing else there. And it was a boy, and he said, when I have a kid, I don't want my kid to know that one day the Xingu was damned.
That's very powerful.
Yes.
In September, you will also give a workshop here called Encounters of Water here in Vienna, where you invite people to, I guess, literally dive into the Danube and listen to what she has to say. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes. Well, that's something I'm working on in this big book that you're seeing. And my days here in Vienna have most of them been about being with the river. So I'm trying to understand this difference between the Danube Channel, the new Danube, the old Danube. I've been to the dam here. And I think one of the things that I'm thinking about, it's really about sharing the process that I have lived in Altamira and in the Xingu, and these tools, these procedures that have been with me in this creation, so that I could listen to the voice of a river. And but something that I say is that I stayed in Altamira just in the process of creation for 3 years, going and coming back. I'm here I will be, I think, 1 month or something. So it's impossible for me to say what the Danube says. I mean, the women who will be with me, I think it will come from them and from what we will live together. And then hopefully this can become like a seed of something that they can continue. I have received the emails of them answering the question of what Danube would say if she could speak, what would she say? And there were beautiful answers. I think all of these women are really urging to listen. They are already listening to her voice. And I'm thinking really about, like, as I said, I went to the exhibition, and it's a beautiful exhibition, but I think that what I can contribute with them, maybe is if we could remake the exhibition, you know, and bring different perspectives, as if the Danube was the curator. And yes, I think this lab will be about this, about bringing the voice of the Danube and giving the Danube something back, making an offer to her.
So you have to be very busy at the moment. I understood you're working also on not one, but 2 film projects and an exhibition.
Yes. Actually, the first film, Edna, I think, Edna is a film that has already been released.
Released or produced?
Yes, but it's already doing festivals. So it's traveling around the world with
and
festivals.
You're starring in it because you're also an actress, or?
No, this film is about a woman that we met in the Araguaia River. It's a documentary that I did with my partner, Eric Rocha. I wrote the script, and Eric is the director, and I was also his assistant, and we worked together in this film. And Edna is like a very special woman from the riverbanks of Araguaia, and the film is going really well in international festivals and also in Brazil. And then the other film we are working, and this one we are co-directing, it's a documentary about a book that I really recommend to everyone that is listening from. It's the most important book ever written. It's called The Falling Sky. It's written by the shaman Davi Kopenawa and the anthropologist Bruce Albert. And this was a very important book in all this research. And we went to the Yanomami this year to film with them the Reahu, which is a funerary parties ceremony. And we are working on this film, like in the editing of the film.
So for our listeners, it's also important to know Altamira 2042 is going to be shown in Halle G in Museumsquartier from August 25th until the 31st. And Gabriela, it was a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your amazing perspectives, and I think I will definitely look at nature or the Danube and everything surrounding me in a certainly different way than before. I wish you a great time here in Vienna, and I hope that you will definitely come back here. So thank you.
Thank you, Nada. It was very nice to talk to you. And I just wanted to invite everyone who is listening to come and see the performance and as you said, to look at the Danube in a different perspective and especially listen to her.
Das war der Festwochen-Podcast. Wir verabschieden uns aus dem Studio Wunderbar. Die Signation stammt von Ursula Winterauer. Danke fürs Zuhören und bis zum nächsten Mal.